When you're hot, a cup of cool water is so refreshing. It's just wonderful. A lukewarm glass, not so much. When your muscles ache, soaking in a hot tub is incredible. It is so soothing. But a lukewarm tub, not as much. Almost 2,000 years ago, Jesus wrote a letter that connected everyday water to the condition of our heart. It's one of 7 letters from Jesus in Revelation chapters 2 and 3. They're addressed to churches in cities located in what we call modern-day Turkey: Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. In the first 6 letters, Jesus calls the people to rekindle the passionate love they had when they first began to follow him, to resist compromising their faith, to endure hardship with courage, to pursue a godly lifestyle, to reject the pull towards apathy. He promises that their faithfulness will be rewarded when God restores all of creation in the new heaven and earth. Then Jesus dictates this final letter to the believers in the wealthy city of Laodicea. Laodicea was rich because of its location on a major trade route. It was also wealthy because of its highly sought-after fabrics and its very effective eye salve. Laodicea was a major banking center. It was also a major cultural center. Here's just one example. Ephesus, a nearby city with about 200,000 residents, had only one theater. Laodicea, with only 40,000 people, had 2. The people there were rich and entertained. It was a great place to live. But they had one major issue. The water was terrible. Nearby Colossae had the benefit of cool, crisp streams that ran straight from the highlands. Water that revived anyone who tasted it. And nearby Hierapolis was known for its steaming therapeutic springs, natural baths where people came to soak, heal, and rest. But Laodicea's water had to be piped in from miles away. And it arrived dirty, smelly, disappointing, and lukewarm. It was a daily reminder that even a wealthy, self-sufficient city had a deep flaw it couldn't fix. So, let's jump into the letter to Laodicea. Jesus opens by identifying himself as the faithful creator, the final authority. Then he moves straight into his hard-hitting message. Write this to the angel of the church in Laodicea. This is the message from the one who is the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of God's new creation. I know all the things you do, that you're neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other, but since you are like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. Jesus starts most of the 7 letters by celebrating their faith, by honoring their courage and their good works. But with Laodicea, there's simply nothing that rises to the level of affirmation. Their faith didn't bring cool refreshing, and it wasn't hot and soothing. Really, over time, it had just taken on the temperature of its environment. Basically, it kind of made Jesus want to throw up. Now, part of his frustration was their self-sufficient pride. In his excellent message last week, our student minister Tyler referenced the earthquake in AD 17 that destroyed the city of Philadelphia. That same earthquake also devastated Laodicea. Rome offered to help, but Laodicea responded, "Hey, we're good. We don't need you. We can handle this ourselves." Imagine Venezuela saying, "We don't need your help," after their recent tragic earthquakes, or the people of New Orleans after Katrina hit. Now, before we get too judgy with them, we need to check our own hearts. We might look at what we've earned or what we've built. We might notice how people see us as successful, and we think we made it all happen ourselves. We may even start living like we don't need anyone, even God. As he continues, Jesus calls this idea, this way of living, this way of thinking. He calls it out. You say, I am rich. I have everything I want. I don't need a thing. And you don't realize that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. So I advise you to buy gold from me, gold that has been purified by fire. Then you will be rich. Also, buy white garments from me, so you will not be shamed by your nakedness, and ointment for your eyes, so you'll be able to see. I correct and discipline everyone I love. So be diligent and turn from your indifference. To these material wealthy people, Jesus says, you're poor. He confronts the arrogance. You think you have everything, so you live as if you don't need God. The truth is, material abundance can hide our real hunger for God and mask the genuine poverty of self-sufficiency. Often, the more we have, the more we tend to want, and the more our possessions possess us. It's why Proverbs 38 and 9 wisely says, give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you and say, who's the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal, and so dishonor the name of my God. Laodicea had its luxury, its status, its Fifth Avenue lifestyle, if you will. But what they really needed, what we really need, is Jesus. Jesus says, let me provide pure gold for you, refined in the fire. Without Jesus, our souls end up restless, empty, even end up miserable. But the good news is it does not have to stay that way. Jesus invites all of us into a large, generous, God-sized story. His sacrifice and way of living that lifts us out of an impoverished, self-centered existence into the rich adventure of walking with the God who gives true life. To the people who created famous fabrics, Jesus says, you don't have clothes. Laodicea was proud of its famous black wool. It kind of put them on the map, and they became a fashion capital. Jesus cuts through the vanity with one line. In reality, you have no clothes on. The story of the emperor who had no clothes is a perfect mirror for Laodicea. He strutted through the streets without clothes, completely blind to reality. Everyone but him saw how exposed he really was. And that's Laodicea. People who clothed the whole empire were spiritually naked. Confident, wealthy, self-sufficient, but unable to see their own need. You know, it's not that hard to look put together on the outside while our inner life is threadbare. Maybe you feel that way right now. Well, Jesus invites us to stop stitching together our own spiritual wardrobe and receive his covering. As Galatians 3:26 and 27 says, for all of you are children of God through faith in Christ Jesus, and all who have been united with Christ in baptism have put on Christ, like putting on new clothes. The prophet Isaiah says that trying to make ourselves right with God is impossible because even our best efforts are like stained, torn, worn out rags. And the point isn't shock or shame, it's contrast. Jesus changes everything. When he covers our lives, God sees us as perfect, radiant, and flawless. To a city renowned for eye-healing medicine, Jesus says, you're blind. Laodicea produced a highly prized medicine that was known for soothing and healing eyes. Jesus points out the irony. Those who helped others see clearly were spiritually unable to see at all. Their confidence in their own ability blinded them to the deeper healing that only God could give. We're not immune. We can trust our insight, our solutions, our perspective, completely forgetting that spiritual blindness can't be fixed with human effort. Without God's vision, we can move through life completely in the dark. So Jesus says, Turn from your indifference and let me place salve on your eyes so you can truly see. In Luke 4, chapter 4, verses 18 and 19, Jesus doubles down on this idea when he talks about the reason he came. He says, I am here to announce good news to the poor, to release captives, to lift the oppressed, to give sight to the blind, and to proclaim that God's favor has arrived. When Jesus opens our eyes, we finally live awake to this life that God has always meant for us. Well, Jesus closes this challenging letter with two remarkable promises. Look, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in, and we will share a meal together as friends. Those who are victorious will sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat with my Father on his throne. Anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he is saying to the churches. To those who hear this and respond, Jesus promises a restored relationship and a share in his victory. So promise number one, Jesus says, if you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and eat with you. Now this verse is often used to relate to salvation. And yes, it's true that every person must respond to the gospel by welcoming Jesus into their lives. But whenever we read the Bible, we need to pay attention to the context. And here's the context of this statement of Jesus. He's speaking to people who were already following him. Now, they had drifted away from him into dangerous indifference, but they were already people who were following him. And their lukewarm faith revealed a lukewarm relationship. The good news is Jesus doesn't walk away from that. He stands and he patiently knocks. And he invites them back into a healthy relationship, to a deep connection, to a healthy existence. He does the same for us. When we open the door, he steps in with healing, with friendship, with strength. So the first promise is relationship. The second promise is victory. Jesus says, to those who are victorious, you will sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat with my Father on his throne. Jesus is saying, stay with me. Keep going. Don't give up. When we choose God over apathy, he lifts us into his story, and we stop living as spectators. We become participants who share in his victory. This promise isn't about power, it's about presence. Jesus offers us a seat beside him, next to the King of Kings, welcomed into a relationship where we're completely at home with the God who made and sustains absolutely everything. So what's our response? Maybe your relationship with God doesn't feel as alive as it once did. Well, restoration begins with a simple confession. We need Jesus now just as much as we needed him at the beginning. What Jesus offered to Laodicea, he offers us an invitation for us to open the door. And that might be for the first time in your life or the 100th time or the 1,000th time. Jesus says he's not going to force his way in. He gives us the choice to open that door. But every heart has to answer this question. Is Jesus enough? Is Jesus enough? Once we decide Jesus is the one our hearts have been longing for, the shape of our lives, it begins to change. Following him teaches us new rhythms. It restores rather than drains. It brings peace instead of pressure. We follow his pattern of slowing down, of actually seeing people, of carrying his good news into the spaces we walk into, the spaces we live in, the spaces we work in, the spaces we go to school in our neighborhoods, in our homes, in our cities. Jesus summed all of this up with just a few words. Love God, love the people around you, and make disciples. So let's lean into that way of life. When you're spiritually exhausted, let the cool living water of Jesus revive your soul. When your inner life feels strained, settle into the warm, healing love of God. And as we enjoy his goodness, let's generously share it with others. Today, tomorrow, Tuesday, every day. May we never become lukewarm. Instead, let's live with faith that truly makes a difference, offering God's warm, compassionate truth and sharing his cool, refreshing hope.